we've been clear that welfare spending needs to be made sure it keeps under control.
Sorry, you can't say reduced. You were about to say reduced there and you stopped yourself. This is not Winston Churchill we're talking about. President Trump's damning assessment of the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is splashed across all of the front pages this morning and is likely to be on the lips of the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch later today at Prime Minister's questions. The withering assessment came after Rachel Reeves' spring statement. The Chancellor laid out the case in the House of Commons for the government's economic plans. We can speak now to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Donald Trump says that Keir Starmer is no Winston Churchill. Is he right?
No, look, President Trump has expressed his disagreement with the decision that we took about joining those initial strikes on Iran over the weekend. But I think what's really important when we think about that decision is that to recognise that the Prime Minister took the decision he did in the national interest. And he's approached this with a cool head, with a real clarity of purpose, with a real focus and a determination to do the right thing for the British people. And that's why we took the decision we did to not join those offensive actions, the initial strikes a few days ago. But then when it came to a defensive action in order to protect British citizens, we stepped up and made sure that we are doing what we need to do to keep British people safe.
So you don't think those comments are important?
Well, I think, the President has expressed himself using his words. But what's important for me is that the Prime Minister is taking the right decisions for the UK. And, of course, that the special relationship between the US and the UK continues. We work together with the US day in, day out. As I just said, we've joined the defensive actions, which is about keeping British people in the region, in the Middle East, safe and about taking out, or supporting the US to take out the Iranian capabilities around missiles and missile launchers. And so we will be working with the US on that. We will be sharing intelligence as we do 365 days a year. So the special relationship continues, the cooperation continues, and that's what's important. But we always must act in our national interest, and that's what the Prime Minister is doing.
Donald Trump has made clear he's frustrated with the Chagos Islands deal. Is that deal now paused, given we need the American permission to go ahead with it? Are we reconsidering our options?
No, look, we think the deal is the right thing to do.
But we can't do it without American support.
And we obviously continuing conversations with the US administration. We've been talking to them throughout the development of the deal around Diego Garcia. We've been talking to them as that legislation's been progressing, as the arrangements have been progressing. It's important we continue those discussions, but we think it's the right way forward to secure our long-term future there and to make sure we've got that as part of our infrastructure.
You talked there about keeping British people safe in the region. So why do we have no ships available in the Gulf right now?
Well, we've already been putting defensive capabilities into our bases in Cyprus, which is important to have it there. And we're sending.
Well, why didn't those capabilities
Dragon
prevent the drone attack then?
Well, as I said, we've been increasing the defensive capability on our bases. Obviously, following what's happened in recent days, we're increasing the level of defensive capability we have by sending HMS Dragon there, by sending Wildcat helicopters there. That will increase our defensive capability because we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect British armed forces personnel and their families, to protect our assets, to protect our interests. And that's what we've been building up to over the past few weeks, and we're now increasing that.
How long will it take for HMS Dragon to get there?
I'm not going to comment on operational matters.
I can tell you it will take 8 days. So it's not going to be able to protect anybody at all in the region for at least 8 days. Is that good enough in your view?
Well, as I said, we've been building up our defensive capabilities already, and that includes F-35 jets in Cyprus. It includes Typhoons in Qatar. We've been building up our defensive capability in the region for some weeks.
James Murray, can you answer me that question? Because it's really important. There are people on that base, there are people in that in that region who have experienced a drone attack on British sovereign territory. Is it good enough, in your view, that it's going to take 8 days for HMS Dragon to get there?
I think it's the right thing to do to get HMS Dragon there as quickly as possible. I think it is also right that we have been building up our defensive capability for the past few weeks. F-35s, radar capabilities.
So how did we miss the drone attack?
look, I'm not going to get into the operational details of what happened, but what I am saying is what we've been doing in recent weeks and what we're doing now to further strengthen our defensive capability to keep British armed forces and, of course, their families safe.
Our one working nuclear-powered attack submarine is on the way to Australia. It's thousands of miles away. It sailed right past all of the American buildup of assets in the region. Why did we not see this coming? Why did we not do more sooner?
Well, we have been building up defensive capability over the past few weeks.
So why did it miss the drone attack? If we built up defensive capability, how did we not prevent a drone attack on British sovereign territory?
Well, look, I'm not going to get into exactly the details of what happened, but what I'm clear about is the defensive capability that we've been building up in recent weeks, whether that's F-35 jets, whether that's Typhoon fighters, whether that's the radar capability. And I'm also pointing to the extra defensive capability that we are now sending to the region, because what's important is that we have been prepared in the build-up toward this and that we now step up and make sure we have the defensive capability there.
We haven't been prepared. How can you say we've been prepared? We have no ships in the Gulf at all. Both of our aircraft carriers are in maintenance. They cannot be used. Our one working nuclear attack submarine is in Australia. Every single person you speak to says we are in no way prepared. How can you say that we're prepared?
Well, because we need to take the right operational decisions about having the defensive capability we need in the region. And that's why getting HMS Dragon, getting the Wildcat helicopters there as soon as possible, getting them there as soon as possible is so important.
When will we see the Defence Investment Plan?
The Ministry of Defence are working hard to get that out as soon as possible.
It's been delayed by 9 months. Is it true the Treasury is holding it up?
Well, the Ministry of Defence is working hard to get that Defence Investment Plan ready to be published. You know, it's important that we recognise the amount of extra funding going into our armed forces. You know, the Chancellor is investing the highest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. You know, it's going to increase to 2.6% of GDP from next year. We have an ambition to get that to 3% in the next Parliament.
But that's not funded, is it? That 3.5% isn't funded.
Well, that's the 3% is an ambition for the next Parliament. The 2.6% we're going to hit next year. There's £270 billion going in to defence investment over this Parliament. £5 billion extra in this year alone. So the amount of funding that we're putting into our defence is going up. It's a sustained increase. It's the largest sustained increase since the Cold War. And that's part of the Chancellor's plans that she set out through the spending review. Now, that's really important that we spend that in the right way, and that's what the Defence Investment Plan will set out.
And yet we haven't seen it, and it's been delayed by 9 months. We spend around £60 billion a year on defence. We spend £330 billion a year on benefits. Even if you remove pensions as an element of that, that's £177 billion. That is still £157 billion a year on welfare spending, and it's going to rise to £407 billion in 2030. That is nearly 7 times the defence budget. How can you justify that?
Well, look, we've been clear that welfare spending needs to be made sure it keeps under control.
Sorry, you can't say reduced. You were about to say reduced there, and you stopped yourself.
Well,
do you want to cut welfare spending?
No. Can I just be clear on this? Because there are different components of welfare spending, and we know that it's gotten out of control in recent years in certain parts of the welfare system. So we know, for instance, that the number of young people who are long-term unemployed has gone up substantially. We know that under the previous government, the number of young people who are economically inactive.
James Murray, I'm asking about what's happening under your administration. Welfare spending is going to rise to £407 billion in 2030, 7 times the defence budget. Do you want to cut spending on welfare and benefits?
Look, we've already begun to reduce fraud and error in welfare. We've already begun to change the welfare system when it comes to universal credit to make sure it's balanced towards getting people back into work. We've already started to take those steps to control welfare spending, but we're not done in terms of welfare.
Do you want to cut the welfare budget? Is £407 billion acceptable to you?
Look, we're not done in terms of our reforming of the welfare system.
Why can't you say that you want to reduce it? We are talking today about a very serious attack on British sovereign territory. We are facing the wrath of our closest ally. You have senior military officials, including the Air Chief Marshal, saying that the country is not able to fund its own military capacity. And you can't say that £407 billion spent on welfare is too much.
Look, there are two different questions you're asking there. On the one hand, what is crucial for me is that we get people into work wherever they are able to work. We need to make sure, particularly young people who are long-term unemployed and who are not close to the job market, that we help them get into work. And that's the focus of what we're doing as a government, is to make sure that people do not get stuck unemployed, do not get written off from the job market, and we help them back into work. You also mentioned defence investment, and we are investing a sustained increase that we have not seen since the Cold War.
Is the Air Chief Marshal wrong?
Well, look, the amount of investment that we're putting into the defence of our nation is at a level not seen since the Cold War. It's increasing to 2.6% of GDP next year. The Conservatives, talked about 2.5%, but never had a plan to fund it.
We've run out of time, but I'm just going to give you one more opportunity. Is £407 billion spent on welfare in this country acceptable? Does this Labour government want to cut spending on welfare? Yes or no?
This government wants to get people into work, and that means getting people off welfare and into jobs.
I think people will have taken that answer very clearly.